I'll be straight with you. The older we get, the more invisible we start to feel. You've probably noticed it. At work, in social situations, even when you walk into a store, it's like the world doesn't register you the way it used to. And when it comes to women, especially women who actually have great taste and standards, that invisibility becomes even more brutal if your style sends the wrong message. Look, I'm not here to tell you how to attract women. I'm not some 20-something TikTok bro giving pickup tips. But what I am here to do is call out the silent fashion killers. The ones that sabotage your look and trigger an instant oog reaction from the women you might actually want to impress. Because believe me, they notice. They don't always say it out loud, but they absolutely notice. And you know what? I've made every one of these mistakes myself. This isn't about shame, it's about leveling up. Because when you dress better, you feel better, and the world responds differently. So if you're ready to stop getting passed over, and maybe even turn a few heads in the process, stick with me. Let's get into the style choices that are quietly making women cringe, and how to fix them in a way that still feels like you. The stuck in the past look. One of the biggest mistakes I made in my early 40s was holding on to clothes from my 30s. Not just because they didn't fit the same way, though, let's be honest, gravity's been doing its thing, but because they carried this weird, outdated energy. Baggy jeans with heavy stitching, boxy blazers from the early 2000s, t-shirts with edgy graphics that screamed, "I'm trying to be younger than I am." And at first I didn't see the issue. I thought, hey, these clothes are still in good condition, why not wear them? But here's the thing. Women notice when a man hasn't updated his style in years. It's not just about clothes. It signals that he's stuck, resistant to change, maybe even out of touch. I remember one evening I showed up to a casual dinner wearing a pair of old-school bootcut jeans and a faux vintage graphic tee. I felt fine, but the woman I was meeting, she looked like she stepped out of a European street-style blog. And the second she glanced at my outfit, I saw the moment she mentally checked out. It wasn't personal, it was psychological. Clothes tell a story, and mine said, I stopped evolving a decade ago. What fixed it for me was subtle, not dramatic. I didn't throw everything out. I just started replacing those outdated items with modern fits and more mature tones. Slimmer jeans with clean lines. Jackets that actually fit my shoulders. Casual shirts that didn't try so hard to be cool. I didn't look younger. I looked present, like a man who knows where he's standing right now. And that changed everything. People, especially women, started reacting differently. The energy shifted. So, yeah, sometimes it really is the jeans. The trying too hard trap. Now, swinging too far in the other direction is just as dangerous. Once I started upgrading my wardrobe, I hit this phase. Maybe you've been there too, where I went a little overboard. Suddenly, I was layering bracelets, experimenting with loud patterned shirts, wearing blazers with shorts, basically trying to recreate looks I'd seen on fashion influencers half my age. I thought I was being bold, trendy, but looking back, it was like I was wearing a costume. And here's the truth. Women don't respond well to a man who looks like he's trying to be someone he's not. You can almost feel the secondhand embarrassment in the room when a guy walks in dressed like he's auditioning for a reality show. One particular moment still makes me cringe. I showed up to a rooftop event in the summer, thinking I looked sharp in this ultra-tight floral shirt, ankle-length pants, and shiny loafers with no socks. The outfit was expensive and technically on trend, but when I walked in, I didn't feel like myself. Worse, I caught a group of women giving me that look. You know the one. The why is he trying so hard? Look, that night I realized something big. Confidence isn't about peacocking. It's about knowing your lane and owning it. If what you're wearing makes you feel slightly ridiculous, trust me, everyone around you can sense it. So I scaled back, kept things clean, classic, and let the fit and texture do the talking. A great linen shirt, well-cut chinos, leather sneakers. Nothing flashy, but every piece quietly said, I've got this. And suddenly, I was getting compliments that felt different. Less cool outfit and more, you look great. That's the sweet spot. Not trying to impress, just showing up as the best version of you. Women can spot the difference instantly. Ignoring the shoes, big mistake. Here's something I learned the hard way. Women look at your shoes first, not your shirt, not your haircut, your shoes. And if your shoes are bulky, worn out, or just plain ugly, that's all they need to make a snap judgment. And it usually isn't in your favor. I remember wearing these massive athletic sneakers everywhere, not for sports, just as my daily go-to. They were comfy, yes, but they looked like orthopedic gear. I'd pair them with jeans, even chinos, thinking nobody really noticed. But one day, a friend's girlfriend, brutally honest type, looked down and said, "You dress pretty well for a guy your age, but those shoes are killing me." It stung, but it was the wake-up call I needed. Footwear says a lot about how you see yourself. Sloppy shoes scream low effort. Trend-chasing shoes feel desperate. But a sharp pair, something clean, well-maintained, and appropriate for the occasion, signals maturity, self-respect, and yes, style. I switched to minimal leather sneakers for casual days, suede loafers for nights out, and classic boots for cooler months. Instantly, my entire outfit looked sharper, even when the rest was simple. And you know what else happened? I started walking taller. Shoes aren't just an accessory, they anchor the whole look. When you get them right, everything else falls into place. The dad fit disaster. Let me tell you something that took me years to realize. Comfort and laziness are not the same thing. I used to justify every shapeless hoodie, every oversized polo shirt, and every pair of baggy khakis with the same excuse. It's comfortable. But one afternoon, I caught my reflection in a shop window, not even expecting to. And the guy staring back at me looked like someone who'd given up. He looked tired, bloated, and worst of all, invisible. And I knew that wasn't who I was. But it was exactly what I was projecting. What I didn't understand back then was that the so-called dad fit, those overly loose, boxy clothes, doesn't flatter anyone. It hides your shape in the worst way and adds years to your appearance, fast. And women, they pick up on that immediately. To them, it reads as disinterest, like you don't care how you show up in the world anymore. I had one woman, a close friend who felt safe enough to be real with me, say it like this: "You have such a solid presence when you speak, but your clothes make you look like you're always waiting for a nap." Ouch. But she was right. So I started paying attention to fit, not tight, just tailored. Clothes that followed the lines of my body, not swallowed them. I got a few key pieces adjusted by a tailor. I bought t-shirts with structure, not those limp cotton sacks from discount bins. Even my loungewear, joggers and crew necks had shape. And guess what? I didn't feel less comfortable. I felt more put together, more me. And suddenly, the energy in the room changed again. Women made eye contact. Conversations flowed easier. It was like they saw me again, because I was finally showing up. Neglecting grooming, it shows man. Let's talk grooming, because no matter how good your clothes are, if your grooming is off, it ruins everything. I'm not talking about being perfectly polished or spending hours in front of the mirror. I mean basic self-respect, trimmed beard, clean nails, a decent haircut, skin that doesn't look like you've been sandpapering it with hotel soap for a decade. I used to skip a lot of this. I thought it was too much. I didn't want to be that guy with a dozen products in his bathroom. But then one night, after a long day, I met up with someone I was seeing. She looked at me, smiled, then gently reached over and brushed some dry flakes off my cheek. She didn't say anything, but her face said everything. That moment stuck with me. It's not about vanity, it's about presence. When you take care of your grooming, it tells people, especially women, that you're aware, that you respect yourself, that you're not letting life drag you behind it. So I made small changes, started using a moisturizer, got a better razor, learned how to shape my beard properly, and I stopped letting my barber freestyle. Now I know what haircut actually works for my face and hairline. And the difference? Immediate. People asked if I'd lost weight, if I'd been sleeping better. Nope, just finally using conditioner. Trust me, this stuff matters more than most men think. When you're well groomed, your style has a chance to shine. And you start feeling like a man who deserves attention, because you are. The cologne catastrophe. This one's going to hit some guys hard because cologne feels personal. I get it. Scent is memory, it's identity, it's nostalgia. I used to wear the same cologne I wore in college. You know the one. Overpowering, synthetic, and loud enough to enter the room before I did. I thought it was my signature, but to everyone else, it was more like a red flag in a bottle. One evening I walked into a lounge to meet someone for a drink. She leaned in for a hug and paused. Then came the words, "Wow, your cologne is really present." And not in a good way. That was her polite way of saying, "You're suffocating me." That night, I started paying attention to how women respond to scent. Here's what I learned. They prefer subtlety, sophistication, something that draws them in, not something that punches them in the nose. And more importantly, they associate certain scents with age, behavior, and taste. That cheap spray from the mall, it tells her you haven't evolved. That heavy musky bomb might as well scream midlife crisis. So, I started doing what I should have done years ago. I learned about fragrance like I learned about wine. Notes, layers, dry down, skin chemistry. I tried niche scents that didn't smell like anyone else in the room. I stopped bathing in them and learned to apply lightly, pulse points only. The effect was real. Subtle cologne is like background music in a great movie. You barely notice it, but it changes how you feel. I've had women lean in mid-conversation and ask, "What is that you're wearing?" That kind of curiosity? It doesn't come from shouting. It comes from whispering. Don't underestimate the power of a great scent. When done right, it's not just part of your style, it's part of your presence. Wearing clothes that don't match your life anymore. This one's deeper than it sounds. I used to dress like the guy I used to be. Like the guy who was still running from meeting to meeting downtown, trying to prove himself. Even on weekends, I'd wear stiff button-downs or suits that looked like they belonged to someone else's job interview. The problem? That wasn't me anymore. My life had changed. I was working differently, living slower, spending more time outdoors, with friends, with myself. But my wardrobe hadn't kept up, and it created this weird mismatch. Like I was performing a role that didn't fit anymore. I remember bumping into a woman I hadn't seen in years. We got coffee, and at some point she said, "You always look so put together, but now you actually seem comfortable in your skin." What changed? I finally started dressing for my lifestyle, not the one I thought people expected. I swapped starched dress shirts for soft Henleys and casual knits. Blazers made way for utility jackets. Dress shoes, only for weddings now. What took their place were pieces that still looked sharp, but matched the way I actually lived. And you know what? It wasn't a downgrade, it was alignment. When your clothes match your life, your whole energy shifts. You stop fidgeting, stop adjusting, stop feeling out of place. And women, they notice that congruence. They're not looking for a man in a suit. They're looking for a man who looks like he belongs in his own life. Don't cling to who you were. Dress for the man you are, and the life you're proud to live now. Missing the details where style actually lives. Here's the thing, no one tells you in your 20s, style isn't just about the big pieces. It's not just the jacket or the jeans or the shirt. As you get older, the difference between looking fine and looking like you really have your act together comes down to the small stuff, the quiet details most guys completely overlook. I learned this lesson at a birthday dinner. There were about a dozen of us, friends, colleagues, and some new faces. I thought I looked great, navy chinos, a white Oxford, classic watch. But there was another guy there, around my age, wearing something almost identical. And yet, everyone, and I mean everyone, gravitated toward him. The women in particular noticed him right away. I was confused until I really studied the details. His shirt had a slight texture, almost invisible from afar, but elegant up close. His belt matched his shoes perfectly, not just in color, but in tone and finish. His socks, not athletic cotton, but fine merino with a subtle pattern that peeked out when he crossed his legs. And his watch strap was leather, worn just enough to look lived in, not sloppy. That night I realized, style lives in the margins. Ever since then, I've paid attention to the quiet elements, swapping plastic buttons for horn ones on shirts, choosing pocket squares that add a whisper of color instead of a shout, investing in better quality fabric even for basics. I started ironing again. Yeah, ironing, because wrinkles scream, I didn't care. And here's the wild part. Women pick up on these details instantly, not always consciously, but they feel them. The way you feel around someone who takes care of their space, their words, their energy. Details signal that you're intentional, that you live on purpose. And in a world full of noise, that quiet care, it's magnetic. Outro. You're not invisible, you're just underdressed. If you've made it this far, I want to tell you something you probably don't hear enough. You're not too old, too late, or too far gone to show up with style, presence, and confidence. You're not invisible because of your age. You're invisible because you haven't given the world a reason to see you. But that can change. Today. With better choices, with small shifts, with the courage to say, I deserve to look like I belong in my own life. I've made every one of the mistakes we talked about today. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know better. And once I did know better, everything started to align. How I felt about myself, how people responded, how I moved through the world. So here's my challenge to you. Pick one of these mistakes, just one. Fix it this week. Notice what happens. Notice how women respond. Notice how you respond. And then come back here and tell me about it. I actually want to hear. Because this isn't a one-way street. This channel, this space. It's a place for men like us, building better lives one intentional choice at a time. Drop a comment, share your biggest style regret, or tell me which shift changed the game for you. Let's keep learning from each other. And hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around. We've got more ground to cover, and I'm just getting started. See you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay real, and show up like you mean it.